Today, we're going to dig into a really powerful, ancient chapter of the Quran. It's called Surah Inshirah, and you'll be surprised how it offers this incredible framework for dealing with the mental stress that, let's be honest, we all face in our modern lives.
You know that feeling, right? When you're just completely overwhelmed, anxious. You feel like you're struggling under the sheer weight of life's responsibilities. Well, if that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. It turns out this is not a new problem at all, and the guide we're looking at today has been around for over 1,400 years.
So you can think of our minds as being pulled toward two opposite extremes. On one end, you have what we could call depressed neurons, that feeling of total burnout, low energy, even grief. And on the other end, you've got the overexcited neurons, that buzzing, high-strung energy of anxiety and stress. The Quran sees both of these for what they are, a state of imbalance, and it offers a path right back to the center.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to break down 5 key ideas from this surah. We'll look at the 2 different kinds of burdens, unpack a pretty miraculous verse, explore the science of finding balance, figure out what happens when we lose our spiritual connection, and then finally, look at how to rebuild our sense of self on a totally new foundation.
Okay, first up, the 2 burdens. See, one of the amazing things about the Quran is how specific it is. It understands that not all psychological weight feels the same. In fact, it points out 2 very different kinds of burdens that can really weigh us down.
So, a previous chapter, Surah Ad-Duha, it talks about the burden of depression, that feeling of being abandoned or forsaken. But this chapter, Al-Inshirah, it zooms in on something else entirely. It's talking directly to the person who is stressed out, who is absolutely overwhelmed by the pressure of their duties. Yeah, sound familiar?
And that leads us right to our second point, the anatomy of a miracle. The surah kicks off with this really profound question, and trust me, its meaning goes way deeper than you might think at first glance.
So the word to focus on here is the Arabic word sadr. Now it's usually translated as chest or breast, but the original meaning is something closer to the center or the main office. Back in the 7th century, people thought the chest was the body's control center. But today, we know the real command center, the processor for all our stress, our anxiety, our emotions, it's the brain. So when the Quran talks about expanding the sadr, it's pointing to this incredible neurological idea, an expansion of our mental and emotional capacity. It's not about your rib cage getting bigger, it's about your mind getting bigger.
And this whole idea of expanding your capacity, it's all built on a core principle, the science of balance. And this isn't just some vague spiritual idea, it's a biological reality, a middle path that perfectly connects ancient wisdom with modern science.
You know, Islam at its heart is all about balance. You see it in terms like wasat, which means the middle path, and mizan, which means the scale or balance. The whole point is to steer clear of those 2 extremes we talked about, the totally depressed or the totally overexcited brain.
And this is where it gets absolutely fascinating. This ancient spiritual call for balance, for mizan, lines up perfectly with what modern biologists call homeostasis. That's the state of stable equilibrium your body is fighting for every single second. Life itself is just this delicate balance of biochemicals. It is truly incredible to see that the Quran's guidance and modern biology are describing the exact same thing.
But wait a minute. If this amazing guide to balance exists, why are so many of us still struggling so much? Well, that brings us to point 4, the lost connection. This is all about how the very tool that's designed to bring us that balance can sometimes just stop working.
The whole point of Salah, of Islamic prayer, isn't just to go through some motions. It's supposed to be a direct, intimate connection with God, a time to actually talk, to share what's on your mind, to unburden yourself.
But here's the trap. When prayer becomes just another habit, just something you do automatically, your brain does what it's built to do. It automates it and tunes it out. It's kind of like how you stop feeling the watch on your wrist after a while. Your brain just stops registering the prayer. You go, you pray, you come out, and nothing feels different. Why? Because the most important part, the connection, is gone.
So how do we get that connection back? The answer is dua, personal, heartfelt supplication. This is what turns a ritual back into a real relationship. It's that moment where you decide to speak honestly, to share your fears, your hopes, your feelings directly with God. It transforms prayer from a static script into a living, breathing conversation.
And when you build that real, living connection, it leads us to our final and maybe most important section, rebuilding the self. We're not talking about some flimsy feel-good confidence here. We're talking about building a truly resilient sense of who you are, rooted in something much, much deeper.
Just look at the contrast here. So much of our modern self-esteem is incredibly fragile because it's based on external things. It's built on social media likes, on followers, on what other people think of us. And that can lead to really serious problems like body dysmorphia. The alternative? Of purpose-driven self-esteem. This kind is validated from the inside. It's built on your personal mission and your connection to God, which makes it so much stronger against all the pressures from the outside world.
So here's the blueprint for how you do that. First, you have to be honest and identify how your sense of self has been kind of corrupted by all those external pressures. Second, you put up a wall to prevent more damage. Third, you start rebuilding it on that solid foundation of a real connection to God. And finally, you tie your self-worth directly to your purpose, not to anyone else's approval.
And that brings us to the ultimate promise of the surah, this famous verse. It isn't just some passive comfort, like, don't worry, things will get better someday. No, it's an active outcome. It's saying that inside the hardship itself, when you apply these principles of finding balance and making that connection, that's where you will find the ease. That's where you find the expanded capacity to handle it all.
So let's just end on this thought. In a world that tells us to find relief in happy hours, retail therapy, and endless scrolling, the Prophet's personal time, his me time, was the time he spent in conversation with God. This whole surah shows us a path to finding real strength, not by escaping our burdens, but by connecting to something so much bigger than them. So the final question is, how are you spending your me time?